Time with Herman and Sharron.
All right, let's find out our special guest today, Craig. Lounsbruogh. Is that close?
That is perfect.
Oh, have a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to meet you.
Good to have you. How have you been?
I've been very well, thank you. How have you been?
Because we have people just waiting to get on, and that's what he had to do. He was in the wings waiting to get on.
Right.
This is quite a book. Let me just talk a little about Craig. His handsome son is over here someplace. I wanted him to be on, but he declined.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Big time decline.
Yeah. I'm going to use Craig a lot because that last name is German, probably?
No, it's English, actually.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it does look English in a way, yeah.
Wow. Is a licensed professional counselor in Colorado. So you can't use him, honey.
We're in Colorado.
I have a practice in Parker, Colorado, which is a southern suburb of Denver.
Oh, okay.
He's an ordained minister, a certified professional life coach. Believe it or not, Monica Smelter, the manager of our Nashville station,
Right.
she just got her certificate.
Did she?
Yes, really tough.
It is very difficult.
I mean, wow, it's not something you'd think would be, but boy, lot of work. He has over 25 years of experience in a variety of treatment settings. He also has 10 years experience in pastoral ministries. Boy, you've done it all. As a youth associate and a senior pastor, he spent 2 years broadcasting on Christian radio and on and on. We don't have time to read everything. I mean, you've got a litany of.
I've been very privileged.
My goodness. Did you enjoy school?
Yeah, I did enjoy school. School gets kind of long sometimes, but learning, I'd like to think I'm a lifelong learner, so school's part of that journey.
So how many children?
I have two. I have the one sitting out here who
Is this your favorite?
I can't answer that on television.
His head's going like this. Yeah, yes, I am. Okay. Now, give me, because I read your book and I've got a lot of notes, but give me the premise of why, and in fact, I think this, according to the information in the book, is a compilation of 2 years' journey.
Correct.
So why this particular subject? Because it is an amazing subject.
Absolutely. The subject began at the death of my mother. My mother's health was probably moderate in the later years, but in September of '07, she took a dramatic and unexpected turn. There was a 5-week decline until she finally passed. And when I walked into this, when Mom started to decline, of course, at that point we had no idea what the outcome was going to be. But myself, or I believe more as God was saying, I want you to watch kind of this process you're going to go through to see what I'm going to do in this process.
Were you close to your mom?
Oh, very. Yeah, we have a very close family. My father was still alive, so in terms of my parents, this was my first parental loss,
yes,
which makes it a big one. And so I tried to pay attention through the 5 weeks of her decline and her passing, what was God doing? But the frank reality is, when you're losing a mother, you're not paying attention to much of anything other than this whole dynamic that's going on in front of you and the loss of your mom.
And you're probably telling yourself, this is not going to happen.
Oh yeah, people, denial is one of the first stages of grief, where people can't wrap their heads around the reality of the loss. And so I would say Mom passed away, and probably I didn't start thinking about the dynamics or what God was doing in the context of that for probably 9 months after she was gone. And then it took me 2 years of just contemplating and writing to really be able to kind of see the hand of God through all the various pieces and parts of her loss, and that's why it took 2 years.
And you talk about an autumn's journey. So you wrap it around the analogy of
Yes.
Spring,
Yes.
fall, all the seasons.
Yeah, this is primarily based on autumn because she passed in October, and autumn was Mom's favorite month. So Mom lived in Ohio, and as you know, the colors change and things cool down, the whole transitional season. Right. So the timing of her death with the fact this was her favorite month caused me to take the themes of autumn and tie it to Mom's passing and what God does in those kinds of times.
Grief, letting our losses go.
Correct.
Do we grieve incorrectly?
Well, there's a couple of things about grief, letting your losses go. When people come to me regarding grief, the problem is they say, I got to grieve a loss, right? But they don't understand you have to break down what you've lost specifically. So what did I lose in this loss? In other words, I have a mother pass. Well, yeah, I lost a mother, but what's all the pieces and parts that I lost as part of her passing? And so people don't want to do that. They don't want to look at all the things they're losing because it's too difficult. So what do people want to do? They just want to move on, is what they want to do without grieving the loss, which means that that stuff is going to come up in the future in light of other losses or other situations. So grieving the loss is important so we don't carry that as baggage into our future when we have other losses or other difficult situations. People don't want to do that. Too painful, too much time.
So what makes it come to the forefront later on in life then, if you don't deal with it?
It's probably going to be a loss of some sort. It could be the loss of another family member, a friend. It could be a loss of a job. It could be any number of losses that would have correlations to the original loss. And that is typically going to trigger it. And the problem with the trigger is simply this, is you're not only being triggered relative to what you just lost, whatever that might be, but the past you have not grieved yet is also coming into that. So you're grieving on two levels fundamentally, what I'm losing now and what I did not grieve historically. So it gets really difficult for people.
So is there a right way to grieve? I don't understand that. How do you know you're grieving?
Well, I think what the first thing you have to do, there's fundamentally 5 stages of grief, but the first stage is denial. Now, denial can be an outright denial that I've had this loss, but more often than not, what it is, it's the inability of the person to wrap their head around the loss itself. So the loss is too big, too predominant, too overwhelming, what we call a new normal. My new normal is going to be way too different. I don't want that new normal. So they tend not to go there. Well, first you got to be willing to go there. Secondly, you have to identify the specifics. What, as I said a moment ago, what did I specifically lose? And then I start working through those. And working through those simply means, fair or not, these elements of my life are gone. They're no longer mine. I have to let them go. Versus holding on to something that no longer exists.
When my mother died, our son was very close to her. And so he kept telling himself that she just moved to Canada. And she wasn't there anymore, but she was still all right. She was just in Canada now.
Correct.
That was he couldn't accept it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that goes back to that first stage, denial. They can't, they can't wrap their head around the degree of the loss, and so they'll do something else to compensate for that, and that's what he did.
So is he going to have to deal with that sometime in the future?
It'll come around because it's not reality-based. I mean, her moving to Canada is not the reality of the situation. That's kind of like a Band-Aid treatment. It gives him reprieve in the moment, but it is not a long-term fix.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Does it determine how close you were to the individual passing? Mm-hmm. Because, you know, if the son or daughter or whatever were not that close, mm-hmm. they may grieve and then they're over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are going to be varying degrees of grief based on the degree of relationship. So you have somebody who's really close to you. I'm losing a whole lot more in my relationship with you because we have this closeness. So there's relational distance. How close and how far am I from the individual? And that will determine the degree of loss that I'm going to experience. So yes, it's going to vary.
It's interesting because, you know, at the late age that I am, I've seen a lot of death, you know, friends and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
But some that passed, I didn't know I was as attached.
Yes.
And then months pass, and all of a sudden, all of the things that we did, all of the thoughts from day to day come back, and it would surprise me that I didn't know I was that close to the person.
Yeah, it's the old adage, and you know this as well as anybody. You don't miss something till you lose it. So that's just a part of our life, and we take it for granted, and it's just there every day in whatever way we need it. And we don't think about that thing not being there. When it's not there, all of a sudden, the prominence of that thing, the role it played in our life, we start to understand that now for the first time. Why? Because the first time that's no longer there. So that's absolutely true.
So you had 5 months to prepare yourself for your mother's dying, right?
About 5 weeks.
5 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness,
Mm-hmm.
5 weeks. That's
Mm-hmm.
even shorter time.
Mm-hmm.
So were you dealing with it during those 5 weeks, or no?
Oh, here's what I would say to you. I think in 5 weeks, what you're doing is coping, because it's all moving so quickly. So when you're dealing with a loss like my mother's, she's up, she's down, the doctor's saying she's got a week or two, then she's turning around, we're going to put her in rehab. So you have no place to ground yourself in a situation like that. So you're not really sure where it's going to go. So what you're doing is you're going from day to week, just trying to cope and figure this out. What you find out with when you grieve a loss, and in most instances, while the loss is occurring, all you're trying to do is survive that loss. In terms of grieving it, you don't have time or energy to grieve it until the loss has been concluded. And then after that, that time opens up. Why? Because I'm not dealing with the pending loss, or I'm not waiting for it. It's happened, and then you move into the grieving stage. But my 5 weeks was basically just figuring out how I was going to survive, how I was going to get through this, and then, of course, support other members of the family and other people that were attached to this as well.
You say, in fact, on the back of the book, we live in a culture that is desperate to avoid loss.
Correct. Correct.
Why?
Well, if you think about the nature of the culture, we prefer a kind of a perspective of permanence, that if I have something, it's going to be there. We don't think about the fact that life is basically seasonal, if you think about it. Things come, things go.
i.e.
Nothing's permanent.
The title.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so as a culture, particularly in this culture, we want to carry this assumption that if I have something, I'm going to continue to have it forever, fundamentally. But we don't face the realities that everything that we have will come and will go at some point. And why don't we want to face it? Painful. Who wants to go there?
All right. And we don't have to go there, do we, until it happens?
Until it happens, sure, we can live in denial. But see, that's the thing is, if I know that life is a series of seasons, things come and things go, then there's an automatic preparation that's going on with me as my life goes on, because I know this is going to come to a close at some time. So when it does, I'm more ready for that to happen.
Now
As you age, though, you are more apt to think of things like that than you would
absolutely.
be if you're in your 30s or whatever.
Oh,
Then you
absolutely.
don't think at all about it.
No, the older you get, the issue is, do I have more time in front of me or more time behind me, right?
Right.
And you get in our age group and you start realizing, I got a whole lot more behind me than in front of me. So we start to recalibrate our perspective of life, knowing that things are going to come to a close. As you mentioned, you've lost a lot of friends, so I'm sure of you, so have I. So that creates the mentality for us that, yeah, life is seasonal.
Yeah.
But you get these younger folks that haven't experienced that yet, and most of life is in front of them. That's not what they're thinking about.
You don't think about it at all.
They're just
Yeah, it is. Age makes a big difference.
huge.
Because when you're younger, you go, I'll probably do that about 20 years from now or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, when my next birthday is 80, you think about the words 20 years. No, I don't think so.
That's exactly right.
It's a whole different perspective.
It's a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's where midlife crisis comes in, a realigning of life and
Yeah.
all of that.
You say, God is my front porch.
Yes.
Explain that.
Well, okay, let me give you that one. There's a chapter in the book about that.
Right.
My parents, they're both passed now, but my brother lives in the house that we grew up in.
Did it have a round porch around?
No, it didn't. It actually did at one time, but many, many years ago, back in the 1940s, they enclosed part of that front porch, but they left part of it open, but it was that at one time.
yeah.
But as kids, the front porch was always kind of our place of solace. In fact, I can remember in the summer when it would rain, you get the thunderstorms, you go out on the porch and it would rain all around you, but
Yeah,
not
I love
on
that.
you, right? And so there was this sense that this was a protected place. And so when Mom passed and we went back to Ohio and spent a lot of weekends there, I would go out and sit on the front porch, and it just you have that sense that God is in this place, and much like you were when a child, it felt very protected. And so
Yeah.
God is that front porch in the middle of the storms that we experience.
Very-
Since you had a lot of training, psychology, and was that laborious, or did you enjoy it, or how did you know I've got the kind of personality that would work?
Well, in terms of the field of psychology?
Yes.
Well, I don't know if you go into the field of psychology knowing that. You go into the field of psychology because you want to help people, and that's something you learn, that you have the ability to help people, and you have that. So that's more of a learned process. In fact, going back to the field of psychology in terms of college coursework, graduate work, and so on, a lot of great stuff there, but I will tell you without hesitation that a good psychologist is somebody who has a lot of life experience. Education is secondary to that. And it's part of that life experience where you not only figure out how people work, but how you work in relationship to people.
When you were working on your degree, did you ever read subject matter and you go, I flat out don't agree with that at all?
Yes, you do. But when you're in the field of psychology, there's a bit of naivete in terms of how the world works sometimes, particularly at that level. And so you read a lot of that stuff, and in terms of that recognition that this doesn't necessarily work, That comes after you're out in the field and you're in the real world and you're recognizing the reality of this existence and how that plays in the life of people as compared to what you studied in school. So that's when that realization starts to transpire.
There's a difference in dealing with people too, that people that know the Lord
Yeah.
and know where they're going or where their mother is or whatever, and those that have no hope of the future.
That's correct.
You know, so how do you deal with each one of them? How do you deal with the person that doesn't?
Well, go back to grief and loss. You lose something, right? So if you're not a Christian, you don't walk in faith, when you lose something, the loss is permanent in nature. There is nothing after that. You can replace it with something else, but that is gone. Because this existence is seen as the sum total of existence. There's nothing after this. So this is a dead-end deal. And everything I lose is a dead end. From a Christian perspective, nothing is dead end.
Right.
What ends here is going to go on someplace
so
else.
good. That
Oh,
is
it's
so
totally
good.
true.
Oh.
And so you can live with the hope that I can lose everything here, but I've lost nothing in eternity.
This is a blink
Exactly.
compared to
As
eternity.
Paul says, it's a wisp of smoke. It appears for a moment, then it's gone. It's that brief, yes.
Have you dealt with people that have no hope?
Yes. Yeah,
So what do you say to somebody like that? That's going
well, you have to help them process that within their belief framework, which is this is the existence, and at this is the end of it. And so they do struggle with that. And so I don't know that they ever get a total closure to the loss in their lives, because the loss is so absolutely final. If indeed there's a part of the eternal in all of us, and we deny that eternal part and say it ends, how do you grieve that when that's not who you are? Do you follow?
Yeah.
You can't. And so those folks never get a total resolution. Usually what they'll do is they'll do what we call self-medicate. They'll go get something else in place of whatever that loss was, and on they go, much like your story of the moving to Canada, right? Same thing. You're self-medicating with something that's not really real.
exactly.
You don't really, because when I read the books, even if I don't know the person, I pick up on what their personality is probably like, just by the writing. I'm going to have you read one portion, because the people watching have no idea how you write. I don't even know if you know how you write, because
yes.
it is like,
Probably not.
I mean, because I read hundreds of books, and every once in a while, I'll get something like this, and I go, where did this guy come from? I mean, it's like his brain. But read this paragraph and let the people get a flavor of what this book is about. This particular one happens to be chapter 6. It made an impression on me, but read until it makes sense to that paragraph. But I want them to hear how you write.
Okay. The kitchen window framed every morning all year long. Lacy curtains provided a soft, nearly translucent matting for the promise of a new day. The wavy glass window, with its spray of tiny encased bubbles, had looked directly east, dead center into the face of every morning for nearly 100 years that the house had steadfastly stood there. Between the kitchen window and an ascending sun stood numerous trees and varied, a prolific profusion of forest and colossal canopies. On that particular morning, fall had burst their canopies into exploding flames of color.
That's beautiful.
That's the way it's like, as I'm reading this, I'm going, my gracious.
It's like Jane Austen.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Okay, that's right. It's a compliment.
But I mean, do you know that? Do you know you write like that?
Well, here's one of the oddities about writing is you're writing from your own perspective, your own skill set, your own background, and you write that in a way that reflects what you have in your head to the degree that you can. But how a person is going to hear that or interpret that, I don't have much of an idea really. So the experience is different than my experience of it.
Going back to the experience with your mother, and of course stories that you have had and helped people with and whatever, how do you get to that place of saying goodbye?
Well, I think goodbye is not an event, it's a process. So I think we say goodbye over a period of time. So the further away we are from the loss, the better position we're in to say goodbye, the more we have worked it through. I liken it to peeling the layers off an onion. It's every time you peel a layer, the onion is still there, but it's a bit smaller.
Yeah, but that idea stinks. I'm just
Stop it.
Continue.
But yeah, I get that. It does stink in a sense that it'd be nice to have it done immediately. But one of the premises of the book is there's great purpose and great pain.
Yeah.
So if I were to grieve the loss at one shot and not see it as a process, what growth have I forfeited by virtue of the fact I just got rid of my loss? Do you follow? So there is a process I want to go through because there's rich growth in that, and God's going to work out his plan through the process that I'm going through.
Somebody comes to you and says, I'm losing my father.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do. He was everything to me. I have no life when he goes. What on earth do you do with that?
Well, there's a couple different directions you can go with that. If a person makes that statement, there's probably some enmeshment in the relationship. In other words, there's been an over-reliance on the father for so many things in life that once that individual is absent, the individual does not know what to do. So they've not been able to move towards independence. So one of the things is looking at that and saying, were you overly enmeshed with this individual, which precluded your ability to really become maximally independent? And then we want to move them towards independence is what we want to do. We want to help them understand that there is life outside a single individual. So if I base my life on one person like that, I have narrowed my life down to such a minute place. How am I going to live it with any exuberance or any depth? I can't, because it's wrapped around that one person. So we want to help them see life as bigger than that, better than that. And what you find is when you hear people make those comments, often they have a skill set to live life more profoundly than they think they do. They've just not been able to cultivate it because they've invested in this one person to excess.
So they can't get past this idea.
That's right. But the skill set exists. They've just never used it because this person met those needs. So now I've got to help them cultivate the skill set they have to really live life. Exactly. To live life.
Yeah.
Our humanity and God's infinity.
Our humanity?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what you say.
Yes, absolutely. Our humanity is...
What is that?
It's very simple. Our humanity is the limitations within which we live, as held against God's infinity. And we can only conceptualize that to a degree, but when you go through grief and loss, I can't look at grief and loss through the limitations of my humanity because that's so confining and it limits me in dealing with my loss. I have to do this in the context of God's infinity. And when I do that, then I can grieve that loss. But not only that, I can understand that there's something beyond this that is going to be good for me as well, that's going to fill that hole, that's going to move me forward.
So there's a way to prepare for someone close to you dying?
Yeah, there are ways to prepare for that. Like my mother, her 5 weeks was unexpected. So I had 5 weeks, but it was unexpected. If you know a loss is coming, you can prepare. But one of the things you have to prepare for is understanding this. You can never totally prepare.
Yeah.
So people think, I got it. When this happens, I know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But when that event actually transpires, the thinking you've done has value, but it's not going to be exactly what you thought it was. So one of the things I do when I prepare is to realize, to a good degree, I can't, and I have to understand this is going to be different than I thought it to be.
I always wonder if it's more difficult to have a sudden death to somebody that you loved, or one that you know is coming.
Yeah, and my answer to that would be it would depend on the nature of the person. So, for example, if I have a person who has poor quality of life, a person who has some significant physical issues, and then in terms of quality of life, maybe it would be better if it were a more immediate loss versus somebody else who may have quality of life. And so that dynamic's not related to me as much as it is the individual and where they're at and what their needs are.
How do you feel about healing?
I feel it works, and I feel it can be a great thing.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of people when it comes to healing prior to and post grief and loss can be done. That goes back to my comment about our humanity versus God's infinity. God can bring a lot of things into our losses. It can be incredibly healing in nature.
You talk about a numbness in the book.
Yes.
Explain what that's about.
Well, the numbness, in my estimation, is when the events around you become so overwhelming that your coping mechanisms are deteriorating and you just move into a defensive mechanism, which is fundamentally, I'm going numb. I'm just kind of checking out, okay?
That's right.
Because you do. People get overwhelmed, and trauma, if you look at trauma, there's a numbness to it. But it's so overwhelming that I have to somehow survive. So I want to move into a numbness until I am in a better space and can come out of that. So I think God uses numbness as that place to allow us to kind of heal and catch our breath in the midst of these kinds of losses.
Right.
In fact, you say, these are your words in the book, numbness had the power to isolate me from everything that was not God. And in doing so, it appeared to create a place especially for him.
Exactly.
So you can transfer that into something really good.
I think numbness, people say, when they go into a state of numbness, they think it's a negative. And I would say it's a place where it does eliminate everything but you and God and allows you to do what you need to do to deal with this loss, and then you'll reemerge out of that and deal with whatever you need to.
I think
So,
just about
absolutely.
everybody goes into some kind of numbness.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yeah,
Yep.
everybody does.
How was your parents?
How were they in terms of their relationship?
Yes, was there a good one? bad
Both of
one?
my parents are Depression era, World War II people. My dad served in the Air Force in World War II. They married in 1957, and they were extremely close. So I was fortunate to have the family that was the classic, warm, loving, caring, nurturing family. And growing up, I didn't realize exactly what I had, and then you go out into the world out there and you realize what you got. And so
Yeah.
they were just great, godly, very connected people that gave us a great family life and a great childhood.
Which phases of ministry have you enjoyed the most?
Which phase is probably what I'm doing now, the counseling field.
Really?
Yeah, the pastoral ministry was a good thing. Radio was a good thing because you got to deal with a lot of people, and I did that for a lot of years. But sitting down one-on-one and just impacting a life directly, I love that. The books, you impact people one-on-one, but at a distance because you don't meet most of the people that read your material. But it's still the same concept of one-on-one. So there's something about I can develop an intimacy with the individual and a connectedness that gives me the ability to really impact their lives in a significant way, versus speaking to a broad.
Do they listen to you, the majority of them? Do
I think the majority
let you
listen
help
to you. Yeah, by the time they come to me because I'm probably their last stop. And so I've heard that many times. This is it. If this doesn't work, I don't know what I'm going to do. So by the time they come to me, they are ready for change. That positions me to be able to impact them.
Yeah.
Yep.
How can you, because you had a great home life, apparently, parents.
Oh, yes.
Then somebody that comes from a home that just, I mean, it's like living in hell, and the person is explaining that. How can you relate to that?
Well, you end up relating by virtue of the fact you've worked with so many people from so many situations and so many dynamics over the years that you never lived it, but you've seen it over and over and over and over and over. And you start drawing from that library of experience to connect. Now, I'm never going to live it like the person did because that's not my background, but I've seen it enough to at least know what's going on and be able to connect with them sufficiently.
Wow.
It's very interesting.
Amazing writing. I mean,
Yes.
I had in just a little bit of one of the chapters, but as I'm reading through the book, I'm going, how in the world does somebody have that kind of gift to, you know, it's like,
They do.
it's like butter. You know, it's like butter, but it's amazing. Open the Word of God today. Spend time reading. Jesus Christ is the answer to every need you may have. God bless you. Bye-bye.